Ah, the French champagne.
Champagne!
The schlocky movie from this week may be the schlockiest film we've ever seen on this podcast.
I'm Mr. Pink.
Sis Blue.
So Miranda hasn't seen Reservoir Dogs.
Those men's children are all identical clones of Adolf Hitler.
Once they were men, now they are land crabs.
Amanda Bynes is a national treasure.
There's like a bunch of other shit that happens in Driven.
Is there?
Secret Nazis.
Yeah.
Secret Nazis.
Hey, Daddy lost his eagle.
I hope
So-
no one from my family listens to this podcast.
The Citizen Kane of the week is...
Hey, welcome. This is a Podlet. Normally, this is a podcast where we do longer episodes and we take a movie that's a classic versus a movie that's schlock and we compare them and we ask ourselves honestly which is better, but this is not that. This is a little Podlet, which is something we do when we want to do a shorter conversation about something within the industry or that has come up in another podcast that we don't talk about. So this, what? Shut up, Dan.
Okay.
So yeah, my name is Jack Rennie, and over there is fucking Dan. Shut up, Dan. Say hello. Perfect. And the other one,
I'm Sean.
Sean. Good. We're recording this just following our
Cyberbullying me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm regular bullying.
Right, that's true. That's true.
I'll cyberbully you later.
When
you go
Over WhatsApp.
on MSN.
on MSN
on
Messenger.
ICQ.
Yeah.
What the fuck is ICQ?
It's before MSN.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what
Oh.
like my older brother used.
Oh, weird.
Because it's like it was the letters ICQ, but if you say it I seek you, it's like kind of creepy.
Ew.
Ugh.
I know, isn't that gross? So we're recording this just following our My Dinner with Andre versus Dinner for Schmucks episode, and we're considering acting in new ways. Sean was just saying in a sort of sense. So we thought we'd do our Podlet talking about acting. What make acting good?
What make act?
You know, when people act, when we talk about acting, be good or not good, and we hint at things, and we don't. It's not an exact science, so we're not going to break it down into like a clear code or formula. But what are the things that we think of when we think of acting good?
This is like possibly the most subjective thing that we can talk about.
It feels super subjective.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it is. There's so many different styles of acting, and it is so situational to
What the movie is.
what the movie is, what the material is.
Yep.
And it can really vary scene to scene. So I just sneezed.
Do it into the
yeah,
mic.
great. Yeah, right in the mic.
I turned away.
Yeah, well,
But the
sort
whole
of.
the prep was like, I did that.
Sorry.
I'll just edit that out. That's cool.
No, leave it in.
I'm gonna put some comedic sound in there.
Honk, honk.
Yeah. You're welcome for whatever that sound was.
Good.
I guess what at its core, good acting is, do I believe that person is thinking those thoughts and really saying those words in that moment?
But I know what. Okay, I'll say that I kind of agree that in the baseline of what generally people are talking about when they think of acting, that's what they're thinking about. But what you say, you go, what are you thinking?
I mean, just off of our most recent conversation about My Dinner with Andre versus Dinner for Schmucks, where we heavily weighted that towards does the acting serve the film, serve
Yep.
the project
Yep.
as a
Right.
whole. And there
Yep.
are a lot of movies where the intent is not naturalism. The intent is not truly believing what you're saying. Tropic Thunder is kind of
Great example.
You know,
No, but it's not naturalism that I'm talking about.
Right.
Is that character saying, are those words coming from the character's brain through that character's mouth, or is it an actor reciting lines?
yeah, but sometimes that's also good acting. If the movie is purposely trying to show you an actor acting.
Sure, but
Yeah.
then it's the actor, it's the character of the actor
Yeah.
that
Yes.
we're talking about.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
even a movie like Tropic Thunder,
Yeah.
where everything is so over the top,
Yeah.
it plays because all those characters who are essentially cartoons are still grounded in some kind of reality,
Sure. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it still feels like the characters are actors who are saying words,
Right.
as opposed to it's just. I mean, maybe except for Danny McBride, but everyone else is at least trying to, be someone else, sort of. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to be someone who is saying those lines, not just.
And you also have to look at like some movies, their only intention is to get an Oscar nomination or something like that, and that style of acting is very different than a movie that is purely being made in order to make $6.2 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that I don't think a movie's ever made that much money
No.
singularly, but like a Marvel movie is not going to be nominated for an acting award.
Your $1 Million Baby versus Zoolander.
Yeah.
Zoolander is there for a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And like even in those super big comedic roles like that, like Zoolander has like 7 of those, but like it's fun because like Ben Stiller, for example, does a good job in that movie because it does feel like he creates this consistent, strange. I think consistency is another big factor.
1,000%.
Needs to be weighed in.
Consistency,
right?
sure, yeah.
That the layman, someone who has meaning someone who has in this instance no experience in what goes into making
Fucking Rube.
yeah thanks but a fucking simpleton
Yeah.
schmuck who is invited to dinner but who has no idea about what goes into like make-believe storytelling, but in a way that feels like high art. Would also see and go, well, I just didn't believe it. It's often the common thing. I just didn't buy it. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And people get really caught up in the transforming thing. Oh, they were so good. They didn't even seem like themselves.
Yeah,
They think
which
that-
also is not acting.
Yeah, acting is it's a part of it. It can be.
It can be.
It is a part. I think that there's a difference in questions between what makes good acting and what makes a good actor.
Ooh, shit. That's
Right?
good, Dan. I like that. Go on.
Well, it's true because I think that like a mark of a good actor. I mean, there's different types of actors. There's the Ryan Reynoldses of the world who are,
They play their type.
They play their
They do
type.
their type super well.
Exactly. And then there are the Gary Oldmans who are just true chameleons.
Dracula.
Yeah.
Tiptoes. The guy from
Winston
the Fifth
Churchill.
Element. Winston Churchill.
Air Force One.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a difference
Plane. He's the plane.
there is a difference in caliber of actor when they are able to add that layer of being able to transform into different, fully realized people.
Sure, but there is a very 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 fine line in those kinds of actors where you can follow their performance and you can believe that oh my god, I can't believe it's not them, they're doing so well, and then it crosses some weird uncanny valley line where suddenly you're like, okay, you're definitely not you, but that's a detriment to what you're doing right now. You're putting on such a performance right now that it is not you anymore, and I don't like it.
We're talking about Gary Oldman and Tiptoes.
I'm talking about Gary Oldman in fucking Winston, The Darkest Hour.
and Dracula.
For which he won an Oscar for. I hate that movie.
I never saw
vehemently.
it because I would not see that movie.
I mean, okay, sure. And I
Yeah.
think that not every swing is going to be a home run.
Of course.
But there is no denying that his hits are more frequent than his misses.
And
Someone like
let's-
Oldman, someone like Tom Hardy.
Sirius Black. He's great as Sirius Black.
Great as
Great
Sirius
Sirius
Black.
Black,
Great
yeah.
as Commissioner Oldman.
Great Oldman.
No, sorry, not Oldman. What the
Gordon?
fuck? Gordon. Great as the fucking guy in his outing in Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
like-
absolutely.
Yeah.
He has a proven track record of
Yeah.
being
Okay.
that guy.
This is a good point, and I'm gonna spin off of your point.
Please do.
on a counterpoint. Which
Like a
is that-
dreidel.
like a dreidel, I'm gonna spin off
That's
of
what I
the
thought
point.
of. I don't
Best
know.
Yiddish podcast.
Oy vey. So what I'm trying to say is, so also the kind of layman, like we talk about these things maybe in more depth than you might if you're listening to this, but maybe you do. But like people would generally call that range.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
That's what people
Yeah.
they have a lot of range.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go out there and say that range, in my opinion, actually has nothing to do with good acting.
No.
In terms of what we're thinking about. Range is more a pursuit of the actor. It's a sort of egotistical thing.
It's the work.
Yeah, of wanting to be transformative.
Yeah.
It actually has nothing to do with our enjoyment of a story being told.
Nope.
We don't care that your last story it's not relevant because it shouldn't matter what your last role was compared to this one. Mm-mm. It can be sort of fun to look at them all after the fact and go, whoa, you played these different things. But isolating a film or a play or a show, like a TV show, into one thing, range is irrelevant. So, do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but it does come back to the acting versus actor or conversation.
Exactly.
Because I think that range is definitely a real thing to separate good actors from bad actors.
Good actors have range generally.
Yeah.
Not always.
But not always.
Not
Generally.
always. I mean,
It's not really something you should get overly hung up on.
But you also like
if you want to take the craft of acting seriously,
Yeah.
then I think that range should be a focus because
Yes.
then you become a Ryan Reynolds and again, I love Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Ryan, if you're listening, I love
He's
you.
great.
But
Come on the pod,
but
Ryan.
but not a
Carrie.
ton of range in his career. And I think that if you want to be a movie star, that's one thing. If you want to be an actor, you need to be able to play a spectrum of characters and types of material.
and
Yeah.
and different tones. Like, can you be? It's also a funny thing though, where it's like, but also not every actor should feel like they need to do it all. You know, like, do you need to have comedic chops? Do you need to prove? You know what I mean? Or like, if you're a comedian actor, do you also have to do your turn as Jim Carrey and blow us away in a couple dramatic turns? Like, it's also not necessary. Like, there's nothing wrong at the same time with being really good at what you do. Actors are tradespeople. They're craftsmen.
they specialize in
craftspeople.
things.
Yeah, and so some people get really good at just doing their thing, and it's so nice to see them in their thing.
Okay, so then let's look at this comparison which has come up a lot in circles that you guys probably don't follow, but there's an ongoing kind of like behind the scenes social media feud between The Rock and
Right.
Dave Bautista. And Dave Bautista's huge argument is because he keeps getting compared to Dwayne Johnson.
Sure, as a wrestler who has turned to acting.
And an actor of similar size, and has repeatedly and very publicly said, what Dwayne Johnson is doing is not acting. I want to be considered a serious actor, a character actor. I don't want to be mentioned in the same conversation as him.
He's right to say that.
He's right to say that. But if the conversation
He's
is
also kind of insecure and weird to say that. Like,
Well,
kind of
if you-
get
if
But if
your
people are
point.
constantly comparing him online to that shit,
and I think he has a very good point because
I think he does. Yeah.
The Rock is someone who does what you were just talking about. They do the one thing really well, but I don't know if I consider The Rock does the Rock's thing well.
Sometimes.
Sure, okay, but fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
sometimes more than others.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
generally,
do we consider The Rock a good actor?
no, I don't.
I consider him a good tradesperson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that funny thing.
Okay.
Like, he knows how to do the rudimentary skills of film work. He clearly knows
And
how
he's
to
a hard worker.
He knows how to hit marks.
There's no doubt about
and
that.
say
Hard
lines.
worker. He says the
and
lines.
be in frame and look serious. You know, like
Sure.
And he gets himself real swole for the
Dave
swole
Bautista
roles.
in the first scene of Blade Runner 2049 is incredible. And I
very good.
cannot say that about any singular performance that The Rock has ever done. I cannot say The Rock was incredible in that movie. I can say The Rock was good. I had a fun time with The Rock. I can say Dave Bautista in Blade Runner is incredible. And he only has
Scorpion
one
King?
scene.
But here's the thing. So I would say that one scene is better than any performance that any wrestler turned actor has given, and the reason for that is because Dave Bautista has focused on range as an actor.
Yeah.
So so there is an argument to be made that the focus on range will also produce solid acting in any given project.
But his range is still limited by his physical size and his physical abilities.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, but
Yeah, yeah.
but within that, if you look at his filmography,
Yeah.
I mean, Blade Runner. I mean, okay, Bond villain doesn't really count, but
No.
Blade Runner,
Drax.
that
Glass Onion.
Glass Onion.
Yeah.
I mean, even
Even-
those
even
three.
that's different.
They're
Those are-
they're all like, yes, the character
big
is large.
men.
The new fucking M Night Shyamalan movie. I don't know if
idea.
you've seen a trailer for
Not
it.
a
You
clue.
have.
I have. I think we should go see it.
I think so too. But he again,
What's this one about?
It's a cabin in the.
Oh yeah.
The
It's
cabin.
it's four people show up at this like family's cabin saying that they need to sacrifice one of the family members to prevent the apocalypse or something. Anyways, it's clear even from the trailer that Dave Bautista is playing a very different version of himself. Yes, he's big in stature, and yes, that is a defining characteristic of a lot of his characters.
He's a better actor than The Rock.
He's a better actor. He's a better actor than a lot of actors in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
I think.
Yes, I would agree. There's a bit of this will come up again. I intend, like, I've been pushing to also do some podlets with Aaron actually about like casting and about how casting is really weird. But there is a bit of an epidemic with like in American media, especially with models
Right.
being put into shows and stuff with this kind of sort of idea that, well, some of them will turn out to be good actors, so who cares? At least they look good, and that gets some looks, and so fuck it. And then they happen to be right. You know, once in a while, one of them, Anya Taylor-Joy, turns out to be a decent actor and can hold a show down by herself.
Was she a model first?
I mean, yes, I think so.
Okay. I don't
But they, whether they're legal, like they were technically professionally a model or not,
Right.
they are casting people on their modelness
Gotcha.
and then working backwards from there and kind of hoping it all plays out. You know, so
Or their social media following.
yeah,
Which is a big one.
Yeah,
That's
that's
how
terrifying.
that's how Sansa Stark got her role in Game of Thrones, and like she was
In 2009.
she had
2010?
she had the reason why she secured the role was because
Sophie
her
Turner.
Sophie Turner, thank you,
Sansa.
was because she had
Jean Grey.
a large. Well, this is my point. She had a larger social media following than whoever she was in competition with for
Right.
that part. Like it was down to like
okay,
two
I
people.
see,
or
I
whatever.
see.
And the deciding factor was her following.
Her following. Yeah, okay.
Which is, I mean, we've seen her as Jean Grey. That's a bullshit way to decide if someone should get a break as an actor or not. She's fine in Game of Thrones, but like, there's
She's bad. I don't care.
okay.
Sophie Turner's not good.
Yeah.
I'm calling it. This is now an anti-Sophie Turner podcast.
Wow. Don't come on. Don't
Yeah,
come on our
not you.
podcast.
Or
not
come
you.
on and prove yourself.
Yeah, do a monologue. That's the way to prove
Acknowledge us. It only helps
Oh
us.
my God, should we be a gatekeeper podcast where we just get actors
Yes.
to come on and do monologues to determine if they're allowed to act?
That sounds like a great thing for three white dudes to do.
We do need at least one woman.
So without getting overly caught up in like this wrestler, I think the Bautista Rock is it's a really interesting way to look at it, to be honest. And I think maybe people can
At the range,
range, but also just like in terms of like what maybe hopefully people at home, if they listen to this, would go, yeah, right. Like I've seen those movies too, and I've also felt that one is, for whatever reason or another, better acting. And it's been interesting, you know, like we are all people that have studied acting in the professional training programs. And so part of our education was really instilling that the idea that acting is subjectively enjoyable is not entirely true, meaning that there are skills that actors should have.
right.
So you were talking in our last podcast about, you know, like stuff about variation of tone and how when one speaks that like text is delivered in interesting ways to keep our attention without becoming cartoonish, right? Which is a difficult thing to do, but you can't speak monotonously, generally speaking, unless it's juxtaposed against really elaborate speech. You know, like this kind of thing can be done. But there are skills that actors have, and part of it we were talking about, like Dan, you mentioned, like things seeming, I'll say the word genuine, that the words seem genuine, and a phrase that comes up in a lot of acting training is that an actor should say the words as if for the first time. You know, this idea that these things haven't occurred before, they weren't rehearsed, that they are naturally occurring, and
I will say, kind of feeding off of that, having watched the Vanya on 42nd Street, Julianne Moore is in that.
Oh, cool.
I love her.
She's wonderful in
She's
this.
so good.
She's wonderful in everything.
Yeah.
She plays the wife of the landlord of the estate that all these Russian folk live on, and she's like 40 years younger than the husband is, and she's trapped in this life that she has chosen, but very much she is trapped in, and she's dealing with this struggle of like, I have made these choices, but they have led me to a life where I am inherently unhappy, surrounded by the people that I am surrounded by, and I yearn for an escape. And there are scenes where she effortlessly goes from joy to sadness to back to ecstasy again, and it's over like 10 minutes, but she just flows through these things, and there's no effort apparent whatsoever in this performance. And I was just I had it on, I was doing other stuff, I was editing the podcast we released today while I was watching it, and I just found suddenly I was like, oh, I haven't looked at my computer in fucking 15 minutes because Julianne Moore has just been talking and has been like, I can't take my eyes off of what this woman is doing right now.
Yeah.
There's what is that show called? Is it Billy on the Streets? Billy Eichner.
Yeah.
And he does this. He has
What a
this.
segue.
What's that? Well, no. The segue is he has a segment where he takes Julianne Moore out onto the street to like monologue at people, and he just like gives her cue cards.
Wow.
And then she has to like digest it in 2 seconds, and
Right.
then just like do this monologue.
yeah.
with it. And it's fucking incredible to watch her just like drop into something and just go with no like. Go ahead.
You need an emotional vulnerability. You need to be able to have the skill to say like, I don't care what people around me are thinking right now. I literally could not give a single shit about anything anyone has to say about me. I'm crying now, or I'm giddy with laughter and I'm frolicking and jumping up on couches a la Tom Cruise kind of thing, you know? Like you need that ability to just have no self-awareness, I guess.
Which is the tricky kind of counterpoint to the, they transform themselves, they wear these many masks, what a great actor kind of thinking.
Right.
Because there's an implication behind that they are so good at always not being sort of genuine and making their pretend like they're the great deceiver.
Yeah, great liars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is like another thing, that acting is lying.
Yeah.
Right? And in many ways it is, but also there's a version of really good acting which doesn't feel like that, where they are the great truth teller, where they are able to speak as really from this place where it feels like from a place that you connect with it, hopefully as the person watching it, because it feels like you have a similar place deep down in you that those words hit, right? And so that requires, this word vulnerability comes up a lot in acting training.
I would say someone who kind of marries those two things quite well is a Meryl Streep, where because
I think so.
All the chameleon actors that we've talked about have been men, and they've been extreme character actors. And I find that Meryl Streep is someone who is able to really embody a spectrum of different characters, while with all of them feeling like they are real people.
Yes.
And someone like Daniel Day-Lewis, for example, playing the butcher guy in Gangs of New York as an example, he can fit really well into that story, but like doesn't resonate as a human being in the real world the way that like a Meryl Streep character does. Does that make sense?
Yeah. They're able to shift themselves to the scenery appropriately.
I guess. Maybe I'm not explaining my point very well, but
no, but like there is something inherent that some people don't have and some people do have, where you can just be human in whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
You can just be that human being. And some people do not have that ability. Dinner for Schmucks, we were talking, Paul Rudd was really, really good in that.
Good.
You're not going to watch Paul Rudd in Pride and Prejudice. That's not the role. That's not the film
He was in the modern day adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, and like
it's a modern day adaptation.
Yeah, okay.
He's not doing the
period performer.
He's not doing the
he
French
needs to play
period
the
piece.
current man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see. I think that as Paul Rudd now, he wouldn't fit in to that landscape. But I think part of
Paul
that.
Rudd has been Paul Rudd.
No, but what I'm saying is I think that there's a certain recognizability to Paul Rudd that would make him stand out in a period piece.
Yeah, but it would be like, it would be a focus of the production. It would be like, we've cast Paul Rudd in order to show Paul Rudd as the Marquis de Sade.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It would feel like a stunt casting.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would be curious to see if a Paul Rudd could do a period piece in like his Clueless days when he was like fresh out of theater school or wherever he went, and still kind of like chomping at, like, hungry for roles and not like the romantic comedy guy that he is now.
And that's a kind of counterpoint too of like, also we were talking a bit about how typecasting occurs. That some people, we go, they don't seem to have much range, but that's not really their fault. That has to maybe do with them, the industry, right? Going, you're so good at this thing, we're just going to have you do that thing.
Right.
And we're kind of talking about with Dave Bautista, like the effort that he made of being like, I am actively pushing against this every chance I get. I don't want to be just this. I will fight it. And some people just can't, it's hard to fight it. It's like, do you want work or not? So some things are out of actors' hands.
Should we take a wee break here?
Let's take a wee break.
Sure.
All right. Be back in a second. Mwah. Okay, but here's the thing I wanted to talk about. Okay? Shush. I
didn't say
Dan,
anything.
shut.
Daniel.
Shut.
Daniel.
Shut it, Dan. So, the thing that is worth discussing to me is the thing that I bring up on the podcast. And that really matters to me, that regardless of like the individual, because I am not overly interested in, there's also a problem when someone is so invested in their individual performance that it's about their individual performance, when the goal is to, as we talked about, be a craftsperson and serve a project. So what I like in a real, like, the range, quote unquote, that I like is an actor who knows how to adjust to the kind of movie that they're in and play that well. Something like how surprising it was to see, like, this is a really random example, but like Jason Statham in Spy, the Melissa McCarthy movie. He does a great comedic turn because he gets to kind of still be Jason Statham and be a grizzled dude, but he twists it to be aware enough of that to like be really funny in that film for me when I saw it. So it's like, that's the thing that I like, is knowing how to just kind of exist in the movie that you're in.
I mean, to bring Tropic Thunder back up, the last time Tom Cruise was a human being to me was in Tropic Thunder, where he acknowledged he was in a silly movie and he put on a prosthetic suit and he was a very silly man.
Because that in itself is that kind of is a level of vulnerability that we were talking about, that it's like, oh, you also know that, like, to me, there's actually something nice about also the shared catharsis of like, oh, that I'm performing as the audience, and guess what? I do too. And I've made this for you.
Exactly.
I hope you like it.
Yeah.
There's something actually, in a way, sometimes, not always, but there's a certain kind of, I'll say, vulnerability that comes with that, of being like, I know I'm just an actor, and that's all I'm going to give to you. I'm not going to try and be real. I'm not going to try and be like, I'm still going to do those things to make it play as quote unquote genuine, but really we know.
But it's ultimately for the audience's benefit. You're doing your role because you know you're a part of an ensemble or of a whole. You are one little bit, and if you do your part well and everyone else does their part well, the audience is going to leave going like, holy shit, look what they all did for me. That's really nice.
Which is like, so a lot of people I find in like the general public actually still have a reverence for like the method.
Yeah.
And it's why a lot of people like us who kind of went through more like theatrical training for acting don't like that, because it's exactly what we're talking about right now, at least what I'm talking about, which is that
the individual.
The method is the obsession with self, that my sole performance shall be the thing that defines this. And it's just egotistical. And it's also totally a lie,
You're
by the
Jared
way, and
Leto's,
fake.
yeah.
You can't become someone else through sheer will into a new actor. You can pretend real hard and be very committed and dedicated. And if you think you are becoming someone else, that's something else.
I mean, I agree with you to an extent. I think what I find interesting and useful about something like the method is not so much about trying to to assume that you are going to become an entirely other person, actually become that person, is bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I think there is something to the idea of training yourself to take on certain characteristics and habits in the real world that will then be second nature to you in your performance. And I think that is a useful takeaway from something like the method, where you are developing a different personality and set of habits that you then don't have to think about as the character when you're performing.
But it's Stanislavski himself. I've been using a lot of theater terms today between the two podcasts we've been doing, but like,
Get it.
when you go to the root,
Ginth,
when you
Sean.
go to the root of Ginth, when you go to the root of the method, it all boils down to Stanislavski. And Stanislavski himself, later in his life, looked back on everything that he had contributed to the art of acting, and he fully was like, shit, I fucked up. I never meant for this to be like a prescription that actors could just pick up and go with. This is just the thing that I found helpful for me, and so I taught it to people, and they all took it as the fucking Bible, and they ran with it, and that's not good. And then the American theater went from there and prescribed it even more definitively through the 50s, and then now we have all these actors who believe like the method is the way to go in order to create the most believable performance, when in reality it is just something that worked for one guy 100 years ago, and like should not be taken as anything more than that.
Yeah. And might work in part, as you say, Daniel, for some people. Mm-hmm. You know, a Daniel Day-Lewis is clearly just a good actor and likes immersing. Like, some people confuse the method with like immersing yourself, and those two things have an overlap. So like Daniel Day-Lewis apparently lived in a
log cabin,
in a log
to be Lincoln,
cabin.
yeah.
And he didn't, and for some other role even, right? And he didn't have electricity, and he
like built
shower.
a cabin for My Left Foot, and also like went as far as to make crew members like carry him around because he didn't have his character
so
didn't
that's
walk.
bullshit. Sorry, that's bullshit.
That is
full on
bullshit.
bullshit.
That is bullshit.
But like the idea, it's a fun experiment, at least, the very least,
Certainly.
of like you build a fucking cabin because your character has built a cabin, and you live in it, and there's nelectricity, and you survive by like a wood iron stove. Like, you know what? If you have the resources,
Cool, man.
neato.
If a studio is paying you to do that kind of stuff, sounds great.
Sounds neat, maybe. But like at the end of the day, it's not the thing that we see, and that's actually what matters. You know, and it might translate, but
yeah, I feel like there's, in a way, it can actually be what we see though. Like getting that behavior into your bones is what we will see.
Yeah.
In the
It's a
performance
practice.
of the character on the screen. Like, what makes a person believable as a character is the nuanced layers of that person. And sometimes it isn't just the way they're saying a line, it is everything in between the dialogue. It is the specific way that they walk through space. As like it's everything, right?
It's similar to like, so we talk about like being genuine, and like there's also a kind of term or phrase that comes up a lot, which is like, you know, can you draw from your personal experience, right? And I think a good actor doesn't necessarily need to have the exact personal experience, because you can't have the exact personal experience of someone else.
No.
But you can find the
infer.
pieces, you can infer, and you can be creative, and you can learn a bit, like whatever it is that you do to get there. But I hear what you're saying, Dan, where it's like, if the role demands that you be charming in your flirtatiousness with someone, and you are someone who has never
flirted.
and let alone in a generally charming way that people go, oh, what a generally charming way. I like how they flirted with me. That's a hard thing. Then, as you were kind of saying right now, like you can't then let that bleed into the like essence of a performance because you don't do it.
Right.
So
Sure.
in a situation where it's like this person lives in a log cabin, they don't have electricity, they live off of the land. An actor with the resources might try and do that to say this is genuine to me.
Yeah, I guess so. But how does that infer playing Lincoln? How I'm delivering the Emancipation Proclamation, and I'm running through my head while I'm delivering
Daniel
it.
Day-Lewis freed a lot of prisoners just to prepare for the role.
Super cool, dude. You put some wood together and you have a cabin or something. Does this help you deliver a speech at the back of a train? Is this helpful, or could you just pretend? Is that a thing we can do? Just pretend?
Yeah,
Mr. Day-Lewis?
I'm in team pretend.
Team pretend.
And I think ultimately that is what he ends up doing on the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just pretends
Yeah.
more.
Right.
The method is just I
There's more
pretend
basis for his
longer and
pretending.
more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's really what it is. They are pretending, but they just like, I'm going to pretend even when I'm not at work.
Yeah.
You know?
So I do have a little segue here, because we watch a lot of classic movies from 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s when acting was very different from what we see on the big screen now.
Yeah.
And so what to you guys makes a good performance in movies from that era as opposed to movies that we really love and actors we really love from this era?
I don't. It is very seldom that I watch a movie from that era and think that what I'm watching is good acting, because I mean there are exceptions to what I'm about to say, but generally it is a very stylized way of acting that often doesn't feel like real people. Obviously there are exceptions, like the acting in The Grapes of Wrath, for example, felt very real, very grounded. And that's, I mean, again, it depends what kind of movie you're in, but like my benchmark is always, do I feel like this person is putting this on, or does it feel like in this moment I'm watching a person really experience and think these things?
Which a lot of that in defense of movies from that time is restricted by the production that was available, where really they just had like some cameras fixed on a set.
Yeah, but that, I mean, that saying that is equal to saying that an actor is limited, or their performance is limited when they're on a stage in a play.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It isn't. I mean, you can put two people in front of a fucking a white blank backdrop and give them a scene, and if they're good actors, it's a watchable scene.
Yeah. And
I'm not saying that the people from the classic eras aren't good actors. I think that for the time, for what the standard of acting was, they were good.
Yeah.
Sometimes great. But it isn't acting in the way that I think good acting is. I think it's very stylized, and it's a particular kind of thing that some people might like. It's not for me.
It's worth like noting that I'm going to reiterate that acting is a trade. And
Totally.
and it's a craft, and so it's, to us, it's really the same. Like, I also come from a dance background, and you look at old clips of dancing, and old dance like barely looks like dance.
Right.
It's just a difference, and it is a stylistic thing, and
Totally. It's an evolution too.
and it's an evolution, right? There were literally developments, like people could dedicate more time to this thing better, even like nutrition and shit helped people improve, so that's also part of it, right? We have societies in the West that allow for people to really like invest in acting in deeper ways, so as with dance and other art forms and whatever. Not always, but in some ways at least. I think the thing that I'm really like, when I'm really trying to get to as my final thought, at least for me, in terms of the acting thing, what makes it good, whether it's an old movie or whatever, is like, does it leave you with a strong impression? Like, did it get to you? Did it penetrate your critical brain and enter your body in in your heart or in your gut or somewhere else that made you percolate on it? Like, to me, that regardless of whether you think it was strong acting or varied or transformative enough or whatever, those things are actually irrelevant when it comes down to the result. Right?
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I don't think they are irrelevant because I think that they all contribute to that experience. I mean,
irrelevant is strong.
One
Secondary, maybe.
Maybe I think that any one of those things individually might not be the deciding thing.
Yes.
But I mean, if I think about it, analytically, the performances that always leave a lasting impression on me are ones that not only tell the story, because you can do that brushing over tons of lines and just like playing broad beats that tell the story.
I've worked with many actors who have done just that.
You watch
over the lines.
You watch any episodic TV show, and you see that, right? But it is when somebody again is really embodying the character in those moments and being super specific, which I think will automatically make the performance more interesting.
Sure.
And I think that these broad beats lack specificity, which make them bland and generic and mediocre. And it's the people who are like really living and breathing every beat and have really thought through every line that they're saying and are really specific about what they're doing, because then they're making choices that are interesting, but not consciously thinking about, is this an interesting choice?
Right.
They are just living. They're really living that circumstance in that moment.
I to play off that, in the few chances I've had to teach acting in my life, I have gone back to here's the performance you have to give. Here is where you start, where you adventure through, and where you end. That is 100%. And there are little moments in that journey where if you give 110%, if you find some little thing that you can just amp that thing, that tiny little moment up, then an audience is going to go, oh shit. And that is going to they're going to leave the theater. They're going to leave the movie going, oh, they didn't need to do that. They didn't have any reason to do that whatsoever. But they did that. They were vulnerable. They put themselves out there in this really key moment, and they gave 110%, and I love that. And I, that to me is a good actor, is someone who has the ability to do the job, but also just give that little bit more that makes you go, oh yeah.
And this is the funny thing that I'll reiterate, which is how you're talking about it. It's a craft.
Yeah.
Well, you've been referring to it as a trade, and there's a
Trade,
difference
craft.
between a trade and a craft.
Well, I guess I don't know the difference right now.
That's for another podlet.
Yeah. Trade versus craft. A
Crade
crade
versus
versus a traft.
Yeah. But what? Sorry to cut you off, but just
go for it.
what you're saying, I think, is the reason why you can have an actor like Judi Dench get an Oscar for 6 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
Right. It's someone who can really just dig in,
Give you 110%.
and not intentionally overshadow anybody. They just fucking know exactly what they are doing, and they have really thought through the character, whether they've done the method or they just have done. I mean, someone like Woody Harrelson doesn't do any fucking homework at all. He just feels it out in the moment.
Oh man, the yacht movie, fucking
Triangle of Sadness.
Triangle of Sadness. He is so good in that.
I really want to.
He gives 110%.
Yeah, he's an incredible actor. So, but what I'm saying is there is no one size fits all approach, as long as you are fully fucking in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry, you were saying.
I'm just saying, if there's someone that, because ultimately it is also subjective, meaning that what resonates with me, with us, might not be something that resonates.
Yeah.
You might think
1000%.
The Rock is your favorite actor, and we're not trying to tell you that. Yeah, he's and I've seen him in stuff where I think he's really fun.
Yep.
And that's great, And if you're moved by him, fantastic. If you thought he was a really moving dad in Skyscraper,
Loved him in Ballers.
sure. And
Did you watch Ballers?
No.
Oh,
Journey
I feel
to
like
the
you would
Center
be
of the
good in
Earth too? Whatever, but he.
I want to see him do a movie where he just fucks. Think of one. He's such a sexless actor.
Yeah. He's a family actor.
I know. I want to see him fucking just
like Requiem 2. Requiem for a Dream 2.
Yeah,
The
Where
Rock.
he's the drug dealer.
Requiem for a Dream.
Fuck, we have to end there. So anyway, all I was just trying to say is that like it's subjective in that like what resonates with us will be different what resonates with you. So that's the thing that is always going to be subjective about it. But just also keep in the back of your mind that like whoever it is that you go, wow, I think that person's a really great actor. Most likely they also know what they were doing. They weren't stumbling across it. It was a real craft that they have honed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. There it is.
Yeah.
Whew. And just
Trade just sounds more like a labor, like a contract
It is a
labor
labor.
job. No, but there's a difference between
They're not moving rocks, but like
No, it is a trade also. But
more crafts. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Anyway.
You're trying to drive this home, so I'm going to stop.
No, but it's fair enough.
interjecting.
I know what you're saying, and nitty gritty, but like I kind of hear it. But like, it's a craft, and like they know it, and they're doing it probably on purpose. And whether they got there through some weird method thing, or just because they're good pretenders, or they're just good at winging it, and they have good instincts. Other weird thing that actors can develop and train. Like it's intentional, and they wanted you to feel
same
that.
as an athlete. An athlete trains so hard for years and years to develop instincts, reflexes in a situation where they can respond to stimuluses in a way that allow them to progress the play that they're in forward. It's the same as an actor where you pick up on something and you can move a scene forward naturally.
Yeah. And so you've also probably seen the opposite.
Yes.
Where some person was pushed into a sort of stardom position as a lead in a movie, and they're just pretty, and they don't have the ability, at least in that role, to make it something, some kind of popcorn flick, and you probably left feeling generally entertained
At
by
a loss,
the movie.
like, but you left at a loss, like you feeling like you'd lost something in watching it.
Yeah. That the acting was not the part that you were excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying.
Daniel.
Sorry, do you want me to have more opinion?
No, let's stop talking.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. Maybe this was interesting to you. If it wasn't, I'm so sorry.
If it wasn't, it's just three actors.
Oh, God. If not, this is just
Bitching
the
about
worst
shit.
pablum on the whole internet. And that's saying something. But if you're just curious about how people in the biz think about acting, this is just our general thoughts. So thanks for listening to our Podlet series. And tune in to more of our regular episodes. Any gigs coming up that you want to advertise?
Anything to plug?
Anything you want to plug, guys?
I'll be appearing for 5 nights at the Yuck Yucks in Chicago. You can come out and... No, I have nothing.
The amount of money that I would pay to watch you do stand-up.
Just raw.
Just fucking raw.
Just yell at the audience.
So what's the deal with America?
You'd be like, so what's the deal with all of you?
You would just yell at the audience.
What is wrong with you
Yeah,
people?
That would be the beginning of your set. And actually, it would go pretty well from there.
You came to see me? Come on.
Fuck
Who do you
you.
love? Stay home with them, you pieces of shit. Yeah.
That might actually go pretty well.
So you worked hard for money.
Have you seen...
And you gave that money away. A commodity, we all agree that inflation is real and it's tough. And you paid money still. And you knew that I was going to be here. And not that you knew that I was you don't know who I am.
I put new stand-up comic on all the posters, and you still came to this? Have you seen Roseanne Barr's any of her new special?
Where is it? Is it on Netflix?
No.
No, where is
It's
it?
on
Daily
Fox
Wire?
Nation.
No.
After we're wrapped, as a listener here, just go to YouTube and watch the trailer for Roseanne Barr's new stand-up special called "Cancel This."
Get the fuck out of here. Okay, that's it. I'm canceling this Podlet. Thanks so much. We love you probably if you're listening.
At
because you're
least
probably one of our
30% of
partners.
you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Peace out, A-Town.